In this video, we'll solve these two equations. Let's look at problem A. Okay, first, we want to make one side equal to 0. So subtract 3x on both sides. So we will end up having negative 3x squared, then it's the x term, minus 3x, then it's the constant term, minus 2 equals 0. Okay, here is a problem. The leading coefficient, which is the number in front of x squared, is negative 1, which is negative. Usually we don't want to factor with the leading coefficient being negative, so now what we want to do is factor out that negative sign. So factor negative. Okay, so after factoring out the negative or negative 1, you will have x squared, positive x squared. Everything here will become the opposite sign, right? So it's plus 3x plus 2 equals 0. Okay, now all we have to factor is this part. Okay, so we know, well, let's keep the negative sign before we forget. We know if this part is factorable, it will be in this form because it's 1 over here. All right, we need two numbers. They multiply to be 2 and add up to be 3. That's 1 times 2. Right, 1 times 2 is 2, 1 plus 2 is 3. So positive 1, positive 2. Okay, again, according to the zero factor theorem, either this negative 1 is equal to 0, or x plus 1 is equal to 0, or x plus 2 is equal to 0. Obviously, that negative 1 is not 0. So solving for these two equations, we have negative 1 as the solution and negative 2. So two solutions here. Now let's look at problem B. Same thing, we want to leave one side equal to 0. Okay, so we'll have to add 8 on both sides. So you have negative 24x squared minus 44x plus 8 equals 0. So notice the leading coefficient is negative 24 here, is negative. We don't want it to be negative. We want to deal with a positive leading coefficient when it comes to factoring. So we have to factor out this negative sign. Any other GCF? Well, if you look at 24, 44, and 8, you will see there is a common factor of not only 2, 4. Right? I'm going to factor out a 4 here. So every term inside the parentheses will be the original term divided by negative 4. So I will have 6x squared plus 11x minus 2 equals 0. Okay, now all we have to do is factor this part. Okay, so 6x squared, we'll factor it as 6x times 2x. Sorry, 6x times x. Alright, for this 2, I will factor it as 1 times 2. Cross multiply. This will give me a 12x, and this way will give me an x. I want 11x in the middle. That means this x will be negative. So that negative x plus 12x is 11x. Trace it back. That means this 1 is negative. We don't put any negative signs on the two x terms. We only put negative signs on these two terms, the constant terms. Okay. Anyway, check over here. Negative 1 times 2 is negative 2. This is the right combination. So this equation is factored into, don't forget this negative 4 first. Negative 4 times first factor is 6x minus 1 times x plus 2 equals 0. So here we can write either 6x minus 1 is equal to 0 or x plus 2 is equal to 0. Solving for each equation, you will have one solution as 1 over 6 and the other as negative 2. So we have two solutions here. Okay, on your own, I want you to solve this problem, and I'm going to review the answer in 3 seconds. 3, 2, 1, let's go. Okay, so first of all, one side is already equal to 0. All we have to do is factor the left side. Okay, first of all, the leading coefficient is negative. Let's factor out the negative sign. Negative, seems it's 3. That's the common factor. All right, so inside the parentheses is x squared minus 25. Remember, it's 75 divided by negative 3. Okay, so negative 3 times, we want to factor this part. Remember, last time we talked about the difference of squared. A squared minus b squared is equal to a plus b times a minus b. We'll use this formula. So 25 is 5 squared. Here we have x squared minus 5 squares. So it's factored as x plus 5 times x minus 5. So two equations, either x plus 5 equals 0 or x minus 5 equals 0. So x is either negative 5 or positive 5. Two solutions here. And I hope you got it correct. And this is the end of this video.